Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the second in our series of webinars on financial literacy and financial empowerment. We aim to provide you with the tools you'll need to be able to navigate the financial services industry in Canada. My name is Pat Dunwoody, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian ETF Association, as well as somebody who wants to support organizations like 369 Connect and Computech that want to support individuals like you. Today, I'm thrilled to have two experts in the area of understanding the importance of having a strong credit rating with us today. Elizabeth Naumovski, has been in the industry for almost as long as I have and is the host of Finance is Personal, a half-hour show on literacy. She's also an incredibly strong advocate for financial literacy in general. Elena Jara is the Community Engagement Partner at Bromwich and Smith, an organization that assists their clients in rebuilding their worth while helping them relieve the financial burden that may be facing them. Together, they're going to be able to provide you with all of the information you need to build your credit rating and understand why, manage it, and then provide you with the skills and information you would need if you do run into an issue. The second part of the session is going to be about fraud and scams, just to give you an overview to ensure you don't get caught up in any of them. And if you do, how do you get out of them? So with that, we're going to jump right into our Q&A. And the first question is to Elizabeth. And so maybe just give us the overview of what is a credit rating?
You know, that's a really good question because a lot of people hear credit rating all the time, credit score, and actually don't know what it is. So to break it down, credit rating is also referred to as a credit score. And in simple terms, it's the rating of your credit worthiness. If someone is going to lend you money, are they going to get that money back? That's really, really important for all of these lenders to know. It's a measurement of you personally or your business. It's the ability to repay your financial obligation. So a credit score is super, super important. And it comes down to 3 digits. And these 3 digits can vary from 350, which is your lowest, to 900, which is the highest. So those 3 digits are super, super important in your livelihood and in your borrowing.
Elena, do you have anything to add, or we will go on next?
No, she's got it down pat completely.
Perfect. Okay. So Elena, then who does these scores? Where do you go to get them?
All right. So in Canada, there are 2 companies. One is Equifax and the other one is TransUnion. And they both are data banks. They collect information from all of the creditors, and the creditors normally submit the information on a monthly basis. And that information that is gathered is then put into each and every person's file. And then they have this magic formula, which, like Elizabeth was saying, which then will basically let the consumer know what their credit rating is and what their score is. So it is actually Equifax and TransUnion that converts that your monthly payments into the number that your credit rating or your credit score. So when you're looking for information on your personal information regarding your credit rating or your credit score, you're looking for Equifax and TransUnion, and that's the Canadian version. And you could just type equifax.ca or transunion.ca.
Elena, quick question. Their credit scores might be different. Is that correct?
It is a little bit different. So you said 350. And you're right, but so that would be for, I believe, Equifax, while TransUnion starts with 300, right? So, but again, the formula is about the same, and the process is the same. It's just that they have that little bit of difference, but the information that the creditor is getting, it will signify the same. Are you credit worthy or are you not? And that's really what the creditor wants to know. It's like if you're anywhere above the 700 mark, then you know what? The doors are going to be open and people are going to want to give you credit, or creditors anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
So does it matter which you go to, or it just depends on the partnership that the organizations have made? Some deal with Equifax and some deal with TransUnion?
Right. It's all about money for the creditors. So some creditors will submit the information to both. So the bigger companies will work with both credit bureaus, while the smaller companies, the smaller creditors, will have to choose one because it is an expensive endeavor, right? So they'll have to decide whether they use Equifax or TransUnion. So if they're working with Equifax, then they'll submit the information to Equifax, and same thing with TransUnion.
So we're starting to get questions already. So one I know is answered. We asked the same question later, so I won't ask that one. But one that's come in that isn't part of our formal questions I'll ask now is, with your credit score, is it based on the frequency or amount of money you pay, or the ability to pay it back? So is it based on the amount you have in the bank, or is it based on how much you pay towards, I guess, debts and credit cards and that type of thing? So maybe Elena, will start with you and then we'll jump up to Elizabeth.
Sure. So when it comes to your credit worthiness and your credit report and score, basically what they're looking at is they're looking at how you're managing the accounts that you have. They're looking at how you're making your payments, so your payment history. They're looking at how long have you had those accounts. So that, um, if you just if you're new to the country, then you've only been here 6 months, your formula will be based on your unique circumstances. If you've lived here all your life, then again, it's based on the fact that you've lived here all your life. And they're also looking at, how many times have you applied for other products? So that's any inquiries. And I believe that they're also going to look at how many other products do you have? Do you just have one credit card? Do you have a line of credit? Do you have a loan? Because they want to know that you can actually um, handle debt, and not just one kind of debt, that you can handle all sorts of debt.
The key as well is that you pay your bills on time. There are so many people that are overwhelmed with paying their bills and overwhelmed with debt that it's almost like that ostrich, you stick your head underground and you forget about everything around you. And putting those unopened envelopes in a drawer and pretending that they are not there will not help you with your credit score. What they want to see is that if your payment date is on the 30th, that you pay it before the 30th. A few days before as well, because if you pay it on a Friday, banks don't work Saturdays and Sundays. The system doesn't work that way. So it takes a few days for the payment to go through. And so the key is paying on time, before time. If you pay late and then the next time you pay it off, it'll still be negative on your credit score. It's all about on time. Listen, we rush to get to the airport so that we don't miss our flights. We rush to go to the movie theater so that we don't walk in late. We're on time for our hair appointments. We're on time for lunch and our nail appointment. You should be on time for this as well. You should think of it as an appointment and being on time, because that's the most crucial part of your score.
Great. Another one has just come in that ties in well is, what's the difference between a credit score and your credit history? Wants to take that one?
I'll take
So,
it, sure.
okay.
So the credit history is basically the length of time you've had the file or the credit card, the loan or whatever credit product you have, while the credit score summarizes all your activity, and then it produces a certain number so that it shows whether you're credit worthy or not. So, for example, if you've just arrived to Canada and you have one credit card, most likely your credit score could be anywhere from 600, 650, because you're just about to build up your credit worthiness. However, if anyone that's lived here a little longer than that, they may have 750. So therefore, their numbers different because, again, they can display different factors like history, inquiries, the length of time, and all that information, so that it really does reflect a more robust information for any creditor that's looking at your file.
So just to simplify it as well, we've all been to school, whether it's high school, college, or university. And at the end of the year, at the end of your term, you get a report card, right? And on your report card, you will get your mark, whether it's an A, an A plus, or whatever it is. It's the exact same thing. Your credit history, think of it as your report card. It reports on how often you pay your bills, when you pay your bills, whether you pay the minimum, whether you pay a larger amount. So this is your report card, and the credit score ends up reflecting what your report card history is.
That's a very good way of remembering it. Thank you. So there's no way that they can pull in even if you're an American or from another country and you've got a great credit score in another country and then you come to Canada, that's not transferred to the Canadian process? That's too bad.
No.
It's the
That
same
would make a
thing
lot
when
of
you're a snowbird, but Pat, it's the same thing when you're a snowbird. You have your credit score here in Canada and you have property, you don't have any debt, you've got a really good high credit score, and you've just purchased a property in Florida. Snowbirds go down, they're retired, and they have a really hard time getting a loan or a mortgage because they are starting their credit score from scratch. They're starting from zero. It's the exact same thing.
Okay. We've talked a lot about this, but I think we've missed some of the details with regards to why having a good credit score is important. So we've talked about building it up. So Elizabeth, maybe start with you in terms of why it's important for especially new people new to Canada or young people.
Yeah, absolutely. So a higher credit score basically shows that you are less risk for a lender. And when you are less risk and you have a higher score, believe it or not, you will get lower interest rates. Maybe your insurance premiums will be better. If you've got lower interest rates, you get a lower mortgage, so you can buy a better property to move into. So it all trickles down to having a better life. And it applies to mortgages, car loans, lines of credit, personal lines of credit, and credit cards as well. So it actually changes your life from living paycheck to paycheck or hiding your bills in the drawer to being able to breathe and having a better life for yourself. And basically, the reasons for a good credit score: significant savings in interest rates in big ticket items, right? Better terms and availability on loan products for you, access to better credit cards, insurance discount, better housing options. So all that stuff will allow you actually to save a little bit more money. And as we all saw with what happened with Rogers and the Rogers outage, cash was king. If you didn't have cash, you didn't have access to your funds. So then, you've got a little bit of savings and you've got more money for your emergency fund. So it all trickles, it's all like a domino effect. Once you start with something good, it all trickles to better and better and a better lifestyle for yourself.
What about if you're not looking to buy a house, you're just looking to rent? Does it impact that as well?
Yeah. So in addition to what Elizabeth said, it also impacts your ability to get tenancy. So a lot of landlords are now checking your credit report, as well as potential employers.
Yeah.
They're checking credit reports. So it's really important because this is now like your letter of introduction into Canada, really. Because and I think that's whether you've lived here forever or you're new to Canada, the creditors and landlords and employers are relying on the credit bureau to just give them a little bit of an insight of who you are and how credit worthy you really are.
It's, a really good way to sum up what you just said, Elena. It's your resume. It's your credit resume, right? Because as you said, employers are looking for this now. If you are renting an apartment from somewhere, I mean, it's all so compact now that anything you do, you're always going to look for your credit rating, your credit score. So think of it as your own personal finance resume.
That's good. So Elena, I mean, people can obviously check their own credit rating. So two parts. Is there a cost to that? And how often should you check it?
So yes, everyone can check their credit report. They could do it for free. So I understand now that most of the banks have this service where you could go on your computer and online banking and check for extra services, and there you'll be able to check your credit report, and that's absolutely free. You can go and visit the websites for Equifax and TransUnion. There is a fee for that, so anyone can check it. We recommend that you check at least once a year so that you know exactly what is being said and to confirm that the information that is in your file is absolutely accurate. There's been many times where information's just a little bit off. Maybe it shows that you work for company ABC. It should have been CDB, right? You just need to make sure that you can confirm that that information is absolutely correct. And just to
And I
add
think,
to that,
And
oh,
I-
sorry,
no, I
just
was
to
gonna
add,
say, I believe some credit cards will allow you to check your score as well.
I
Okay.
think so. I think so. I won't confirm on that, but there are other companies that do offer that as well, like Credit Karma. It's absolutely free, but just be aware that when you do register with them, they're a loans company, so they'll be sending you text saying, "Hey, we have a loan. Do you want to access that?" So, just be careful with that. But the other thing too, that whenever you check your own credit report, it's considered a soft inquiry, so it will not affect your credit score in any way. But when someone else checks it, when a creditor checks it, when a potential landlord, depending on how they're checking it, or a potential employer, then that could be a hard inquiry, meaning you could lose points from your credit score.
And Ellen, I want to add to what you just said about, oh, hey, we've got a loan for you. We really have to look at how much money or how much debt or credit, how much credit we can have within our system. It's great to have all this money around you to help you live your life, but it's also a detriment because when it's there, you want to spend it. So you really have to pay attention to how much credit you have available. And there's never free credit. There's always something that, there's always interest payments. There's also compounded interest. I mean, there's so much that goes with it. You never have free credit, even though it sounds like it's free.
That's true. That's true. But that's the other thing too that many consumers really should be aware is that, what's their uh, pain threshold when it comes to credit, right? Because the reality is, it's fantastic to have all this, credit available for you, but if you tap into all of it, you have to remember you have to pay it back, and sometimes those monthly payments can be very high. And if you can't afford it, then that's really what you have to start looking at. It's like, what are my other alternatives when it comes to paying it back? And that's where we come in, really, where we really have to, we advise that you come in and talk to us, and then we can review your unique situation and advise you as to what you can do. Many times, a lot of consumers just decide to look away, or like you said earlier, just hide their heads in the sand and not open envelopes, not open those emails, because they just don't want to deal with it, right? And I totally get it because it is overwhelming, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it is important to deal with it because as time goes by, and Elizabeth said this well, interest rates, they're accumulating on that, and when that happens, because you haven't made your payments on time, or you just haven't made the minimum payment that's required, all of a sudden the low interest rates that you had initially, well, now you're being penalized because you've been late or you haven't made payments. They start to increase. And so let's say you were paying 14% on your credit card. Now you're paying maybe 22% or 29%. And those are pretty high interest rates.
And just to
I just
add
want
to
to,
what you just said, sorry, Pat, just to add to what Ellen just said, because she's mentioned really, really good pieces of information here. It's easy to get credit. How many times do you go to a bank or you're walking through a store and they're throwing credit cards at you? Here, do you want to open up a credit card? Do you want to open a credit card? And they're coming at you fast and furious. I remember when I was 18, I couldn't get a credit card and I asked my father to co-sign for me. And he said, no, cash is king. If you can't afford it, you don't buy it. And so I've had that in my brain my entire life. But back then it was hard to get credit. Now they're throwing cards at you and it's easy. And the problem with having a lot of credit in front of you is that you think that you can just go and spend it. But what happens, you know, at the end of the month when you receive the bills, you've got to pay them off too. So it's a very difficult circle that certain people, you know, have found themselves in right now. And it's a very difficult circle to get out of as well.
I just want to go back once. We've got 3 questions that I will get to, but just one of my own. Elena, you mentioned that there would be a small hit on your credit score every time there's an inquiry. Does that bounce back? Because, you know, if you're new, or if you're a young person, or if you're new to Canada and you're just building up your credit scores, so you're going to get an apartment, you're getting a credit card, you're doing all of those things right away. How quickly can you build back your score just based on those inquiries? Like, is it that impactful?
Well, each inquiry can cost you from maybe 3 points to 10 points. It all depends on the agreement that they have with Equifax and TransUnion. But the other thing too, it does build up, but it builds up within some time, maybe 6 months to a year. So, and again, that's part of their unique and private formula that the credit bureaus have. So it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, it'll only take a month for you to recuperate those points. That's not true. It does take time. So that's why you have to be extra cautious on that. Sorry.
No, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so some of the questions that have come in. One, how accurate is the rating on Credit Karma?
I don't know.
I've heard it's pretty good.
Okay, good, thank you. And with regards to the limit on your credit card and being under it, is that part of the rating? Like the use of the card and how you use it? Is that all tied in, or is it just as long as you're underneath the amount you're allowed and you pay off your minimum, that's what they're looking for?
They're looking at everything. They're looking at how much you've borrowed. They're looking at how many times you make your payments on time. They're looking at how you're handling that debt. So they look at everything, and that goes into that formula.
And I think it's important to mention, you know, if your credit card is $1,000, don't try to max it out every month, and don't go over, because if you go over, that's a negative as well. And I believe you have to be within the 35% threshold. So if you have $1,000 credit card, stay within, you know, spending $650 a month. That'll keep your credit score lower, because once you keep inching up to your maximum, or, you know, if you go over, it shows that you're not responsible with the money that you have. And even if you don't pay it on time, but then you pay it off the next time, it's still a negative. So there's all these little things you have to worry about.
Yep, she's absolutely right. The lower the lower the amount that you use on your credit card, the better it is for you for your credit score.
Okay.
And let me just add one more thing, Pat. Sorry.
Sure.
You know, we're talking about credit cards here, and Elena, you're talking about the amount of credit that you have available. So some people think, I've paid off my credit card, I'm going to close it, and that'll be really good for me. However, let's say that you have $10,000 worth of credit, and, you know, from different sources, whether it's personal loan, credit card 1, credit card 2, credit card 3. So altogether, you have $10,000 worth of credit, and you have this one credit card that it gives you the limit is $3,000, and you pay that off and you close that credit card. So now you actually have $7,000 worth of credit. But what if you already had $6,000 worth with the original $10,000 credit limit? With the original $10,000 credit limit, and you have $6,000 used up in debt, you're still within the threshold. You're 40%. But if you close that $3,000 credit card, now you have $7,000 worth of credit, but you've got $6,000 worth of debt still. You are very close to going over, and you are very close to having a really, really, really bad score. because you closed that credit card and it altered the amount of money that you actually have, the amount of credit you actually have.
So in other words, keep the credit card, but just put it in a drawer.
Yes, or in your
Yes,
freezer.
good advice. Good advice.
Okay, so we've got two more coming in, so we're bouncing around. So this is fine though. Is there any adverse effect of having a higher credit limit other than temptation to spend, even though it would result in a lower credit utilization rate? In other words, should we accept the credit limit increase offered by credit card companies regardless?
I personally don't.
I feel the same way. I'm very wary about that. And it's
Yeah.
just because of the temptation, right? So if you already have a $20,000 credit limit and you almost never use that credit card, only for travel or whatever, then that's fine. Keep it at 20. But why would you want 25 or 30? I mean, it's just too high and temptation's too great. And God knows, I mean, anything could happen and you could be tempted to use that. And how are you going to pay it back is the next question.
And what's the point? Like, if you're not going to use it, why take it?
Yeah, okay. For credit utilization ratio, does an individual credit card count, or is it a combined, there's the combined limit that matters more?
I
So if you
believe that
have 4 credit cards, is it always sort of the combined total and then the ratio of that 30-40%, or do they look at the individual and then sum them up?
my
I believe it's
understanding is
combined.
individual, and then each one is reviewed, and then they do the total amount. So you should be within the 30 to 45 maximum percent of usage. And again, a lot of consumers, it can vary because, a lot of consumers are really, really good with their credit. So I want to give them credit for that,
Mhm.
saying, they'll use 35, 60% of whatever their credit limit is. And then at the end of the month, they're paying the whole thing off. And that's okay. But if you're carrying a balance every month around the 55 to 65%, then that's where the issue really lies, because you're, if something happens, you're not going to be able to make your payment the following month. And that's really the key point that we're really emphasizing, is like, be careful.
Yeah, okay. So then let's take a step back and just say, okay, either you've just turned 18 or 19 and you're going off on your own, and or you're new to Canada. How do you start building your credit rating? Like, what is the best first step? Did I say
My
Elizabeth?
Okay,
Oh,
Elizabeth, go
sorry.
Start with one credit card, but it doesn't have to be thousands upon thousands of dollars. Start with a $500 limit or $1,000 limit max and see how you work with that. You have to start somewhere. You can't just start by, getting one credit card, then opening another one, and then getting a personal loan and just going crazy with trying to, get a whole bunch of credit. Start small and be patient, because understanding your credit card, understanding payments, understanding the whole process will take you a while to figure it out. And the best thing is, start with one credit card, pay it off every month. Remember, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. I mean, there are certain circumstances where you have to go and go into debt, but if you don't have to, don't do it. And I think one of the key things to understand when you begin, I know everybody talks about minimum payments, but don't get into the habit of doing minimum payments. Start, get into the habit of paying off your credit card every month and do it on time. Do it beforehand. If your credit cards are due next week, pay them off this week, so that all of this positive stuff that you've been doing for your credit card will go towards a positive credit score for you.
In addition to that, I think that for new Canadians, there is a program that as soon as they arrive, they're able to open a bank account and get credit right away. But when it comes to young adults, that process is a little different. So if you're going to university or college, then many credit card companies are out there offering those products to students. However, if you're not in school, but you really do want a credit card, then just approach your bank and ask for a secured credit card. And a secured credit card just means you're giving them a deposit, which allows you to get that credit card. The bank is secure because they have the money already. So if anything happens, they'll just be able to keep that money and return whatever is left to you. But that's the security purpose of that credit card. And that will help you establish a credit rating, a credit score, because really that's what you need. You just need that one product, like Elizabeth said, just need one credit card to help you start and establish yourself with it. And keep in mind that, as long as you make your payments on time, all the time, doors will open right away.
And just to add to what Elena said about a secured credit card, if you do have a secured credit card, it looks exactly like every other credit card. So no one will know that you had to put a deposit down for it.
Yeah.
And secured credit cards are also used to help you rebuild your credit score. If your credit score is really, really bad and you don't have any more credit cards or whatever, you have to start from scratch. And the best way, as Elena just said, is using a secured credit card. So that secured credit card can help you in more ways than one.
Great. So one of the questions that's just come in is, as an immigrant, do you get any credit for having a really good or high credit score in their home countries? Or does it have to start all over again in Canada?
Unfortunately, you have to start all over again here.
Yeah. However,
That's
even if you have to start all over again, you already have the great discipline from whatever country you came from. So you already know how to have a good credit score and you already know the system. So once you get in, you start with that one credit card or whatever it is. And within no time, your credit score should be pretty good because you already knew the system. You already had a good score.
They said they have 4 credit cards, but they're only using one of them. If they cancel one of the cards, would that have a negative impact on their credit score?
It won't, but it's always wise to send a note to Equifax and TransUnion to advise them that it was you who decided to close the account and not the creditor. So that way, if anyone is looking at your file, they'll say, oh, well, it looks like Mary closed her, looks like someone closed the account. And then they'll read the notes and say, oh, okay, Mary chose to close the account. Very different perspective.
And we didn't know that
That's a
years
really
ago.
good point.
Yeah, growing up,
That's a really
when
good point.
you wanted to close a credit card, you just closed it thinking, okay, I'm done, it's paid off and I move on. But now it's very different when you look at credit scores. And that's something that I wasn't aware of. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Okay. And we're going to get into repairing credit in just a second, but just to go back, we talked about checking your credit score to ensure it's accurate. And so this ties into that. How do you correct a mistake on the reporting that they may have? And would it affect, well, let's start with that. How do you fix something that you see on your credit history that's not accurate?
You contact them and you tell them that it's not accurate. They have to find out from someone.
But what kind of proof, I guess, would they require to prove that it's not accurate?
So normally there's a form, which is called a dispute form for Equifax and TransUnion, which you have to fill out, and you have to specify what you feel is inaccurate. So let's say, for example, you have a Bay account and you paid it on time and you have the receipt to prove it. Then you could just say, okay, I noticed that on May 2022, it shows that I didn't make my payment. Meanwhile, I paid the whole thing off and I have a receipt here. So then you can just write to them, provide all the information pertaining to that particular account, including a copy of the receipt and a letter indicating exactly what you want to be disputed and investigated. Both credit bureaus will take that information, will review it, will look at their files, and then they'll update the information. When that happens, once the file has been updated, then so will your credit score based on what was found.
Okay. And if it affects the interest rates that we've talked about in the past, that it bumps up interest rates because your credit rating has gone down, will that be adjusted as well? Or then do you have to reach out to that loan or that credit card company and try to get them to reinstate the lower interest rate?
Yeah, you'll have to go back to the initial creditor and review the situation with them and say, look, I'm disputing the penalties. Want to make sure like it's retroactive and that you also accept that there was a mistake from your side. Now, if the consumer, on the other hand, was late and you want to dispute that, you can't, because if you were late, you were late. However, I do have a tip for consumers who are late. So the problem could be that your due date falls on the date that you don't get paid. So all you have to do is just call the credit card company, ask that they change the date, and that will not affect your credit score or your credit rating. And as a matter of fact, that will help you because now you'll have more control as to how to pay back your credit card on time rather than struggle or juggle to make those payments when you know you can't.
The key
I
is
had
that
no idea. I had no idea that was possible. That's
the key
incredibly
is you have
helpful.
to
Thank you.
advocate for yourself, right? You always have to advocate for yourself, whether it's the credit card company, whether it's with Equifax. My mother always said, if you don't ask, you don't know. So this is an incredible tip that you just said, because a lot of people think, oh, well, this is my due date. It's carved in stone. Nothing's ever carved in stone, though. You can always renegotiate your debt. You can always renegotiate your interest payments. You can always renegotiate everything.
Yep, that's true.
That's really good to know. Okay, so now something has happened. Maybe it's out of your control and you had a really hard hit on your credit rating. How do you repair it? Liz, we'll start generally and then we'll get into the best steps.
The nitty gritties.
Yes.
So, I mean, just as we just been discussing, check your credit report, once a year. Make sure all the information is correct. Set your date of birth, your address, where you work, all your personal information. Is your debt utilization too high? Do you have late or missed payments? Just as we had talked about before, check what the problem is. Look at your report card, right? Your report card will tell you everything that you need to know. And that way, once you see all the information there, you'll have the ability to change what has been wronged. Make arrangements to bring all your accounts up to date. Speak to someone like Elena, speak to a credit counseling place, to help you put some sort of a plan in place so that you can actually start paying off your debt and get you back on track. If you're always late, put the information in your calendar. Give yourself a week in advance and say, today's the day to pay off all my bills. And make sure that it's in your calendar. Make sure that you're aware of it. Repair your credit rating. I mean, it all comes down to budgeting, right? Don't spend more than you make. So create a budget for yourself so that you actually know where your money is going every month. Why are you always in this situation? Why are you spending more? Write it down and look at it and figure out where it's at, because it's got to start somewhere.
Right.
Thank you for that. That's exactly what I said in the very first webinar. Is the budget is the most important thing to figure out where you are spending your money. So that's great. But is that all? Well, I don't want to say is that all there is.
Is that all?
What would have the most impact? So where would you start first, depending on credit cards or loans? Like, is there one that has more impact, a positive impact than the others?
I don't think so, but I do have just a suggestion for a lot of consumers, and that is start living your life with cash only. At least do it for a couple months to see exactly how, where and when you're spending your money. And the other thing too is like you'll realize that hey, you've been subsidizing your lifestyle for a long time with those credit cards. And if that's the case, that's definitely a warning sign. If for whatever reason, maybe there's been a separation, an illness, or unemployment, whatever there is, those things tend to happen. Those are unexpected, expected situations. Unfortunately, that's part of life. So if that happens and you just can't get yourself back on track, and like Liz said, reach out to us. Bromwich Smith is here to help. You don't even have to think, oh, I'm going to be going bankrupt or do a consumer proposal. Absolutely not. We're here to just, help you with your unique situation, go over your income, asset, expenses, and provide options. And that way you can just say, oh, okay, I didn't know I could do this. Just like I was saying, providing like a couple of tips. Just change the date of your due date.
Yeah,
Maybe that'll just, alleviate some pressure on payments. The other thing too is start looking at how you can automate your payments. Maybe you forget, but the money's sitting in the bank account. So, if you don't want to pay monthly, maybe you want to pay bi-weekly so that those bi-weekly payments are made before the due date. And again, you'll be on time. You'll be probably making your payments a little bit more than you were supposed to. But the really cool thing about that is that you'll be paid off a lot quicker and you'll be paying less interest too. So there's a big plus on that. So I just think that people need to start getting organized, need to review their regular expenses, and then ask themselves on an ongoing basis, do I need or do I want? Because at the end of the day, if you need, that's great. Spend. If you want, then maybe you could say, you know what, I can't have it now, but I'll save half of it for this month and then half of it next month, and I'll be able to purchase the whole thing straight up. A credit card should be just to kind of say, okay, well, this is just like a bridge for next month. I'll have the whole amount and I'll be able to pay it off. But I just want to be able to create that sort of rating, that sort of score so that it shows that I'm credit worthy. Elizabeth, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, because what you're saying is so exciting, honestly. I want to go back to budgeting. And as I said earlier, and you just said it, cash is king. The problem is, when you owe money, depression sets in. And what do people do when they're depressed? They impulse shop, or they go on the online, they look at Instagram, and then you go through FOMO, the fear of missing out. Oh my God, Pat and Elena just went out for a wonderful dinner. I need to go do that as well. Then, YOLO sets in. You only live once. And Drake sings about this all the time, but he can afford to have a YOLO life. I
Yeah.
can't. I don't think you guys can either. So we have to really see what we do with our money. And yes, live a needs versus a wants life. Make frugality fashionable. One of the ways to really look at your budget too is, have rules for yourself. I personally will only buy things if they're on sale. There's certain things that'll never go on sale. So, those don't qualify. But if I'm going to shop, I want to make sure that I get top dollar for what I buy. So I only look at things that are on sale. Forget about what other people are doing. Focus on you. Focus on how much money you are making and how much money you are spending and what you can afford to do, what you can afford to buy, and what you can't afford to buy.
Yeah. You're right. And I have one rule too, which means when I go shopping, if I'm going to buy a top, then when I come home, I have to get rid of two things. So normally I try not to buy too much just because of that. But we all have different rules and that we live by. So make sure that you can implement one that you can truly live by and follow through. Just because Liz is saying one thing and I'm saying another, and neither one of them is going to work for you. Figure out the one that really works best for you.
and somebody made a comment that they canceled a phone plan and thought it went away. Meanwhile, it came back 6 years later and the company didn't exist anymore, but it was on their credit rating. So I assume that when you're checking, at least annually, at least you will see that. You can reach out and say, here's the proof that I shut it down and or
Yep.
now the company doesn't exist to make
Right.
sure it doesn't happen. Okay, more
A
questions.
lot of people have been doing that, Pat, just to add, during COVID, a lot of people either lost their jobs, were hunkered down at home. A lot of people got rid of cable. A lot of people got rid of their landlines. So if you did that, it's a really good reminder to double check and see that that they're still not there on your credit score. The other thing that I thought was really important, I had canceled my landline with Bell during COVID. And they kept sending me a statement saying that they owed me $8, but because it was under $10, they wouldn't issue me a check. So if any corporation owes you money, call them up and get that money because it's yours. $8 is $8. You know, my parents are also immigrants. They came to Canada with $125, a suitcase, not knowing the language, no family, just having each other, no job, none of these wonderful webinars to help them out. And, you know, I was taught that every penny counts. Every penny you work hard for is yours. So if a major corporation owes you $8, get your $8.
No, that's true. And then you'll have that statement showing that it's closed,
Yep.
which is beneficial, which will be in the file that I mentioned at the last webinar, that you have a file to keep everything in. Okay, if somebody ended up having too many credit cards due to all the different promotional offers and they carry some balance or pay every month in full, what's the best strategy to bring the credit card numbers down? Is there sort of an optimum number, or do you just keep them all?
Elena, this one's for you.
Elena?
Well, you know what? I truly believe that you should have a maximum of 3, maybe a retail one, like a credit card, like a Visa or a MasterCard, and then just a second one. So I know I've traveled in some places in Europe, they only accept Visa. In other places, they accept MasterCard. So, you know, you can kind of balance that out. I know a lot of people tend to go with those credit cards that offer those reward points. So again, buyer beware, consumer beware, because it's going to take a long time to get that free flight. You need hundreds of thousands of points or dollars to have been spent for maybe 10,000 points. So be very careful for the type of credit card that you're purchasing or you're subscribing to. The other thing that I also say, you know what? A line of credit's better than a credit card in some ways, because it's like cash. You could just go out and take the money out, do what you need to do. The only thing that I would say is be careful again with the line of credit, because if you're just taking the money out and you're spending it, you have no idea where you spent it. So you need to keep all the receipts
True.
for that, just to make sure that you can track everything that you spent your money on.
Also, if you have many credit cards, what is the annual payment that you're paying for those credit cards? Because if you're paying $1,000 for 4 credit cards or whatever it is, maybe it's time to switch your credit cards to ones that are, you know, don't have an annual fee and are free for you to use.
Right. Or
Is there
transfer.
a place, is there a place somewhere or a website that does that kind of compare on various credit cards?
There is. The CFA, no, FCAC, the is it Consumer
Yep.
Federation of, I get confused. I know it's the FCAC, right? So you just visit their website, and as a matter of fact, they have an actual page that allows you to compare all the credit card products that are out there based on your needs, your wants, and the cost of each one of them. So it's a great idea to check out as many products as possible to see. But the other thing too, you could always call the credit card company and say, look, transfer me to the low rate option. And if you're paying 19%, you can be transferred to like the lower rate option that's maybe 12 or 14%. You could save quite a bit of money, especially if you're carrying a high balance.
Yeah. Okay. Question, assume you have a good credit score, and then you're looking to buy a house and take out a mortgage, and then what's going to determine the interest rate, the credit rating or the lender, or is it a combination? Like when you go into, I'm trying to think back because it's been a while, when I went in to get my mortgage, I didn't realize that there was an impact, because there was usually the interest rate was presented to me right away with the assumption that they didn't have a chance to look at my credit rating. Do you push them back to say, no, I've got a good credit rating, I want something better? Like how does that conversation happen?
Well,
You could
always advocate
negotiate.
for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Negotiate.
Yep.
And you don't have to just go to your own bank. You can shop around with as many banks as possible. You can shop around with, or someone else could do it for you. So a mortgage agent could do it for you. My suggestion also is the one thing that they're going to look at is not how much you have outstanding on your credit cards, but what do you have as a credit limit, right? So if you have 5 credit cards all at $10,000 credit limit and you only are using maybe $20,000 of that, they're going to look at, you know what, your potential of getting into more debt is bigger. So we need you, and some banks do ask this, that they need the consumer to ask the banks to reduce their credit limit or to pay off
Okay.
as much as possible so that then they can qualify for a mortgage
But it also comes down to your salary as well,
as
right?
well.
How
There's
much
many
money are
factors.
you making? Right, yeah,
Yeah.
like how much money are you making and can you afford to make your mortgage payments?
Yeah.
Over and above the other debt that you have. So a lot of it has to do with your wages as well.
And also the cost of the house, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, in Toronto, it's almost unattainable.
Yeah, exactly. Hence why I'm in the country. So as an immigrant, what's the minimum time required to build a healthy credit score? Is there a time limit? That is, what is the process?
I
Patient.
would say give yourself a year, give yourself a year to build healthy credit. Again, it takes time. You're just arriving to a new country. You're just about to get a new job. You're settling into a new place. You're just making friends. So give yourself a year. Don't be in a rush to have everything done and ready within a month because it doesn't work like that. You need to show that there's been consistency on your file with regards to your credit payments and your history. So you're just building it up. So give yourself at least a year.
Yeah, you need to be patient. Nothing happens overnight, especially a good credit score. I mean, it's your history. So if you just arrive, you don't have a history here. You've got to start building your history.
Very good point. Question, I have 3 credit cards from different banks, but I'm not using 2 of them. I didn't activate them. Does that have an impact on my credit score if they're not activated?
If they're not
No
activated,
idea.
there's no history. It's just an inquiry.
Okay, so as long as you don't activate them, they won't be pulled into your credit rating. Okay,
No,
perfect.
it will show that you got one, but it looks like it's inactive. So
Yeah.
you should check your credit report to see exactly how it's being reported. But my understanding is when you don't activate it, it's inactive. So, and the big thing that people need to understand also is that let's say you do want to activate it 6 months down the road. Well, it's you will have to reapply for that credit card again. That's the way a lot of
Okay.
the creditors work. So it's because you kind of missed that window of opportunity.
It's the same with a check, right? When you send somebody a check and they don't cash it within 6 months, 6 months seems to be the threshold for things like that.
Okay. It's a good question. So quite often, if you work for a company, you may get a business card that has your name on it, but also the company name. So do those credit cards affect your personal score?
Well,
I don't know.
I believe they could, because again, although it's a company credit card, it has your name on it,
Yeah.
right? So again, check your credit bureau, make sure that you see that they're paying on time and that it doesn't affect your credit score. But it definitely could because it does have your name on it. Anything that has your name on it will definitely have an impact on your credit score. It's just like what Elizabeth was saying about um, her experience earlier when she asked her father to co-sign. Her father
Mhm.
was smart not to co-sign, but this is a really good lesson for all of us to learn. Do not co-sign if you don't have to because it is like a warning sign. So if someone who's lived here forever and says, "Oh, I don't have credit," that would be a bit of a warning sign. It's like, why don't you have credit? And
Yeah.
why do you want me to co-sign? So be careful.
I just had somebody, a friend, reach out to me and say, I've got a really hard time with credit. Can you co-sign my mortgage? And I said, I'm sorry, that's a big ask. And yeah, My rule is never to co-sign for anyone. It doesn't matter who that person is, because the bottom line is they go rogue, they spend, an unlimited amount. You're pretty much responsible for it. And I think everybody, a lot of people will go around asking for someone to co-sign, whether, a child asks their parents or whatever. And Elena, you're 100% correct. Your rule of thumb should be do not co-sign ever. You're responsible for your own. That's a very big responsibility. Forget about being responsible for other people's debt as well. Just focus on yours.
Question. I checked my credit score on a weekly basis with Borrowell. Last week when I checked, it had a drop of 20 points. I've done all my payments and utilization ratio is less than 20%. Do you have clue? I mean, I guess you could ask, but do you think there's a reason why they would drop 20 points in 1 week off the top of your head, or they would have to ask?
I don't think it's a week. I think that it's a term. And so what she was or he was looking at is the fact that Borrowell got the information, and that information was for like the last 6 months. So 6 months passed, and now this is a new file, a new term, and therefore they've updated it. So now what the person will have to look at is Equifax and Credit and TransUnion's file and see exactly where the discrepancy lies. Was there a time where she was late or he was late? Was she borrowing more money or anything? Like any little thing could be a reason for the score to be decreased or increased.
And you only have to do it once. Any little thing, you miss a payment, you're late on your payment, you've gone over on your credit limit. Like you may think, oh, I'm just going to do it just this once and then I'll go back to normal again. All of these little instances, you all you have to do is do it once and it'll absolutely change your credit score.
Okay. Is FICO, we were just talking about this before the webinar, is FICO score used by credit rating agencies or by the lender?
I believe the lenders use them.
Yeah,
The
that's
lenders
right.
are all signed up with FICO.
So maybe we take a step back and just maybe walk what FICO is for the rest of the listeners. So who wants to explain what FICO is? Or
So I can say that 90% of Canadian corporations or lenders use it. They're US based and they are the ones that come up with that magical formula for your credit score.
okay.
So
Every
it's actually
inquiry
a program.
Oh,
Sorry, Pat.
Okay.
It's actually a computer program. That's what FICO is.
Yeah.
Right. And that's being provided by this company called FICO, actually. So, and Equifax and TransUnion uses it. Other credit bureaus use it across the world. And again, it's that magic formula. They figure it out based on, what all the things that you're doing, and it will produce that credit score. So when people talk about FICO, then they sometimes get confused because they're really talking about their credit score. But it's very important just to know that you're really just talking about your own personal credit score.
So it's not the actual items on your credit history. It's the formula so it's the calculation, but not what goes into the calculation.
Exactly.
Yes.
Perfect. Does every inquiry on my credit report impact my credit score?
Yes.
Yes.
So, but sometimes I guess it may be important to take the hit of a few points if you think there's something wrong.
So that's why you're supposed to look at it at least once a year.
Right. So your credit score is going to be impacted when you're going to purchase something. So let's say, for example, you're house hunting and you need a mortgage. You're going to look for the best rate. Therefore, if you check 3 or 5 banks in the same month, that's going to come out like one inquiry. Okay. If you decide that, hey, I stopped house hunting in May now, and now it's July, I'm going to start again because the prices have dropped. So in May, they checked your credit score. That was an inquiry. Now in July, it's a second inquiry. So will it affect your score? Absolutely. Now it's going to drop a little bit more than it was before. So people need to realize that, is it worth it? So if you're looking for a house, absolutely. If you're looking for a car, absolutely. But if you're looking for a credit card just because you want to get those points or you want to travel, then ask yourself, need or want.
What about if you're using a mortgage broker? Does that impact? They don't make those inquiries. They just give you the best rate based on your situation? Because they
No,
may make inquiries.
they'll make the inquiries on your behalf because you're providing them authorization to check your credit score as well in order to get the best credit
So if you're
interest rate.
using if you're using a mortgage broker, should you ask them to only limit it to X number of potential banks?
No, the way it would work is that they access your credit score, and that credit score is sent to all the banks that they deal with
Okay,
and all the
okay,
private mortgage companies or anyone that is offering the mortgage. They'll send that information as a file. So it's that one time that it gets hit, but it gets shared with everybody.
okay. Is it only when my loan or mortgage application is rejected? Oh, I think this was a continuation, or even if somebody checks my credit rate? Sorry, it was probably a part 2 of a question. And I don't have the part 1 in front of me. Hang on, we'll go back. So if you have a loan or a mortgage application rejected, does that have an additional impact on your credit rating, or that just because of your score? Because
That will just show as an inquiry that you were applying for mortgages. So again, let's say I'm a creditor and you just applied for a credit card. I'm going to check your file and I'm just going to see an inquiry was done by Royal Bank, Bank of Montreal, and for mortgages. But I'll see that. Any creditor can see who has looked into your file, who's made an inquiry into your file.
okay.
Nothing is secret.
When every time you go for a credit card, credit line, or any other debt, the lender provides the interest rate when you have to pay. So but what you've said during this last hour is that there is the ability to, I don't want to say negotiate, and potentially not at the branch. You would have to phone the credit card company to find a better level, because there may be something else that you can get, no points, maybe a lower line of credit, but there are options that you could ask for.
There's
I
always
think you
options.
always, absolutely. Yeah, Elizabeth is right. There's always options. And you just have to say, what else is there? Is there any other product that you can recommend that doesn't charge an annual fee? Is there any other product that has a lower interest rate? That's all you have to ask. And they'll say, oh, yeah, we have this. And sometimes they have the introductory rate. So beware of that as well, because the introductory rate could be for 3 months only, or 6 months that you don't pay any interest, or that the interest rate is really low. But then at the end of that term, the interest rate will go up to 19.99%. And you may not have remembered, or maybe you just kind of forgot. Whatever the case, just you need to make sure that you write things down so that you realize that, 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road, your interest rates have gone up. Will be
Yeah,
going
and
up.
introductory rates have expiry dates. So that's something that you really should concentrate on, because sometimes it expires without you even knowing. And as Elena just said, it may go from 2% to 19%, and then you're shocked that your interest rates have gone up so quickly. So those are things that you really have to look out for.
And to enhance your bargaining power, to make this happen, I guess it would really just be doing some research ahead of time, going to FCAC, which I apologize for those that are listening and were on the last session. I will be creating a chart with, all the helpful websites, but to come prepared with other offerings, so that when they say this is the lowest you can get, you can sort of point to them and say, yeah, no, it's not.
Always ask.
Yeah, and like you said, check the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada and make sure that you check out all the products that they suggest. And you could actually, bring it to the bank that you're going to and say, look, according to the FCAC, this bank is offering this and you're offering this. Can you match it? Is there any way that, you can give me a better rate? So like you have to ask. You won't know. And if they say no, that's okay. Then check out the other company and use them.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. We've answered all the questions that have come in, and I think we've pretty much answered all the questions that we had planned for. So I want to spend the next little bit of time just talking on the scams and frauds, mainly because they have such a negative impact on your credit rating. You've worked really hard to build up your credit rating, and then one slip could, put you in a financial system that could really impact it. So one of the items, Elena, that you mentioned when we were talking before this presentation about credit cards that aren't from banks, that are offered within communities. So I'd love you to walk through the risk of those and what they are, and then recommendations in terms of for the people listening, where they should get their credit cards from.
Right. My understanding was that there are some communities that are probably suggesting to their friends or their neighbors saying, hey, you can get a credit card from so and so. They'll charge you a fee. But the reality is, individuals do not offer credit cards. It's only a bank and a creditor that does that. And so you have to be very aware. So if you actually are visiting someone's apartment and they're asking you to fill out the application, that's a big no-no. And if they're asking you to pay a fee for that application, that's also a big no-no. Because when you go to the bank, they're not charging you for a fee. They're not asking for you to pay for any administration cost. As a matter of fact, they're very happy to give you that product for free as part of their services. It's not free once you get it and start using it, but they're not charging you anything extra. So be very careful when someone is suggesting to you that you can get extra credit, but all you have to do is pay a little bit extra for that credit. So if anyone's talking to you about that or for a loan, be also, ask, like, who are they connected to? Are they connected to the big banks? If they say, well, no, and if they are connected to the big banks and say, well, okay, well, why can't I go to the branch? Which branch is it from? Right? Why can't I visit that person at the branch? You should never be visiting anyone at their homes for a credit card or a line of credit or any other product.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag. And just to add to credit cards as well, during COVID, we're in lockdown. I had 2 of my credit cards that had been stolen. The numbers had been stolen. And what I think everyone should do is have that alert on your credit card. So if something happens, you get a text and you get an email. But we're all getting so many texts from fraudsters right now, and you don't know which one is real and which one is fake. If you ever do get a text or an email saying, there's suspicious activity on your credit card, go to your credit card. On the back of your credit card, there's a phone number for you to call. Call that number. Don't call the number that's in the email. Don't call the number that it's texted to you. Use the number on the credit card and then call them up and say, I just got a text or an email for some suspicious activity. Is it true? If it is, let's halt the card and stop it right now. And this is a really good way to protect yourself. As Elena was saying, it's a very weird thing to go to somebody's house and have them issue you a credit card. Credit cards are issued by financial institutions. They are regulated. They also are members of certain organizations where if they go bankrupt, this organization will be working on your behalf. Going to somebody's house, they're not regulated. You won't get your money back. Those are red flags. Always be alert of red flags in certain words that people are saying to you.
Yeah.
Like free.
There's no such
Okay, so
thing.
yeah, I know. We're going to lump a few together because while the message is different, I think the process is the same. Is when you get text or phone calls from people that say they're with CRA, with your bank and that you owe, or you're going to, you're going to be charged. I think everybody's received at least one. What should you do when you get one of those? Elizabeth, we'll
Hang
start
up.
with you.
So on Twitter, I always say, stop, pause, think, delete. It's the same thing. If you're getting a phone call, this is so amazing that we have immigrants on this call. A lot of people have come from countries that will arrest you or, put you in jail for an hour or whatever it is. Need to understand that when you are getting a phone call and they say that your SIN number, suspicious activity on your SIN number, or which is your social insurance number, or your SIN number has expired. They don't expire. Our social insurance numbers are with us from the day that we are born to the day that we are that we die. They don't expire. If you get a call saying that your social security number has been, I don't know, suspicious activity, well, that's the United States. We don't have social security numbers here. And if you get a call saying that CRA is going to arrest you, we don't arrest people in Canada. That just doesn't happen. So what do? Stop, pause, think, hang up. If you get a text, especially right now with Rogers, with whatever happened with that Rogers outage, I have received many texts saying, for a Rogers refund, reply why. Well, Rogers hasn't really come up with a refund. They haven't even discussed what's happening. They've been trying to focus on what went wrong and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So anything like that is a scam. Don't respond to them. You have to remember, if it's CRA, anything to do with the government, they have all your personal information. They will not call you. They will not text you. They will probably send you something by mail and then follow up with a phone call saying, we sent you this letter. This was the file number. This is what we want to discuss. So people that are new, people that are seniors that don't really know, please help educate your friends, your family. We do not put people in jail here because they haven't responded to CRA. This is all fraud. These are all scammers. And the problem is, once you pay these scammers and they run away with your money, you'll never be able to get your money back.
That is so true. And I just want to add one more thing, especially the newcomers who are waiting for their immigration documents to be completed. And you might get something from an email or a text. Again, call the main line and say, I just got this. Is this correct? Because if they're asking you to pay with iTunes cards, you definitely know that it is not the government asking you to pay. It is someone else who's asking for that. If they're asking you to send the money directly to as an e-transfer, absolutely not. That's not work. So please be just extra careful. I get tons of once a week saying your
Froze.
card has been compromised. And you know what? I wait in here and say, well, what's going on? And they tell me, oh, you have, this bank credit card. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I just hang up because you know what? They say, well, you tell us which credit card you have. And you could be half asleep or you could be in a rush and you're just answering. Don't answer. It's like you called me, you tell me what you're calling about. Always get them to do more of the talking than you and never provide any personal information because if they're calling you, they may call, saying, um, you know, E or N something, right? And the reality is they don't even have your full name. So be very, very cautious.
Pat, I'd like to add to this.
Mhm.
During COVID, during lockdowns, what happened with a lot of the financial institutions is that scammers and fraudsters started stealing their corporate logos, creating their own scam websites, stealing the information from good corporations, stealing their logo, and also stealing different people's photos from LinkedIn and putting them down as officers of this fabricated website. So what do you look for? Okay, so you see whether it's a bank or a brokerage or whatever, these are well-known corporations. Well, how do you deal with this? A few things. If they have a lot of grammatical errors and a lot of, very positive words just thrown into a sentence that doesn't make sense, it's fraud. One of the phone numbers that they use for you to respond to them is WhatsApp. That is not allowed in our industry. If you are looking at anything, all the regulators in our financial services industries, we're not allowed to use WhatsApp, or some are not allowed text, but WhatsApp is not allowed. You have to call the main line, whether it's 1-800 or 416, whatever the line is. If you see a website that is guaranteeing you 15% return, you know that it's fraudulent, especially in low interest rate environments right now. One of the key things to look for, if somebody is giving you a high return with low risk or no risk, it's a scam. If somebody is pressuring you to invest, it's a scam. You should check and see if that person is regulated, whether it's with IROC, the Investment Industry Regulatory Organization of Canada, or the CSA, the Canadian Securities Administrator. They have a list of all the advisors and everybody who is licensed and regulated. So always keep your eyes open for stuff like this. The other red flag is, they want you to invest with cryptocurrencies. Okay, so the financial industry in Canada will only accept cash. You can do an e-transfer or a check. What I mean by cash is e-transfer or a check. You cannot go with physical, $10 bills or $100 bills or, quarters. They don't take cash anymore. And you can't invest with credit cards. So a lot of these fraudulent websites will ask for cryptocurrency and they'll ask you to invest with your credit card. So think about all these red flags. If you see something and it doesn't look right, go to Google the company name, call them up, let them know in case they're unaware of it, but ask the proper questions with somebody who actually works at that organization. And it's really important to understand what to do if you are a victim of fraud, because there's quite a few steps. Number one, don't be embarrassed, right? Tell somebody, tell your friends, tell your family, because if you tell them, you're actually saving them from becoming a victim of fraud. Stay calm. If you've got emails, documents, receipts, gather all of those. Go to the local police station. Talk to the police department and let them know what happened. Also, if you've e-transferred any funds, go to your financial institution and tell them. They'll put a flag on your account. And the other one is go to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is an incredible resource, especially if you've been defrauded. However, if you want to learn about fraud, they have this amazing website that gives you the A to Z of fraud, and they tell you about every fraud available, every fraud possible. One key thing to note is if you've been defrauded, they will come back to you a second and third time telling you that they're going to help you recoup your money. So be careful. If they reach out to you, tell the authorities as well. But really protect yourself, because there's so many fraudsters out there, especially during COVID, especially if you're a new immigrant and they know that you don't know the rules and regulations of our country. You really have to be careful, and always look out for seniors as well, because we have to make sure that they don't get defrauded.
Yeah. I've always, my pet, as long as it wasn't a rush thing, it was always, I'm in a rush, can you mail it to me? That usually puts a stop to that, because they should have my address if they have my phone number, and then it goes away. And then if you do get something in the mail, then you can take the time to read it. I did get a comment sent in just saying for some new Canadians, they get a temporary SIN number that does have an expiry date, because I guess it's tied to their work permit. So, but be aware that that may be true, but they don't know that. So you're getting the call saying it's expired, but they don't know you're on a temporary SIN. So the same rules would apply. Just
it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, Pat. Yeah. They will send out hundreds of thousands of those robocalls, and they don't know whether you're new, you're old, whether you have a social insurance number or not. it's all a numbers game. Just as Elena was saying, she's getting texts and emails from RBC, but maybe she is a Scotia bank. She deals with Scotia Bank. It's a numbers game. And maybe once they'll get it right and think, oh, you're at TD, and they've finally, contacted you. So again, stop, pause, think, delete, or hang up. That will really help you going forward. And don't be afraid of being rude. We've been told as children, never talk to strangers. So why would you speak to somebody on the phone that you have no idea who they are, and you don't even know whether they have their best interest out for you? Well, they don't, because they want to defraud you. So I always say, don't talk to strangers, hang up.
We just got one final question, and we're going to wrap up with sort of final statements. Is, can you drop down from credit worthy to not credit worthy and vice versa in 1 year?
Anything's possible, I guess. I don't know. Anything is possible.
I think so. I mean, if you stop making your payments, if you are late with your payments, or you start to overextend yourself, yes, your credit score can drop significantly. However, to turn that around within the year, it can only be done if you pay everything on time, all the time, starting whenever you decide to, and you bring the outstanding balances considerably low. And that, again, within that year, you could see your credit score increase slowly but surely.
Okay, so wrapping up, we're running out of time. So I'm going to turn to both presenters and ask just sort of for one, I hate to use the word tip, but one statement that you would like the people listening to take away from this session above everything else that we've talked about. So Elizabeth, we'll start with you.
Sure.
One thing, if they
Financial
can't
literacy.
remember anything but one thing.
Financial literacy, know your money, know what your money is worth. That is the most important thing, and patience as well, because nothing happens overnight.
Okay. And Elena, your one thing.
Don't be embarrassed to negotiate. Ask as many questions as possible. And the more you ask, the more you'll learn, and then you'll make a wise decision.
Great. And I would tie that, I mean, it's perfect tie into what I had said at the last session, which is you want a partner. So you want partnerships with, yes, your financial advisor, which we talked about last session, but also with your creditors. You want the banks to be good. You want to be a good partner to them, and you want them to be a good partner to you. So you have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
I see Dinesh is here, so I think that means we're being hooked. We're done.
Well, we actually have a few minutes, obviously, but just wanted to take a moment to say thanks to all of the presenters. My personal comment is that I really wish there was an Elena, Liz, and Pat in my life 36 years ago as a new immigrant to Canada. And some of the horrible experiences that you go through, primarily due to trust. You trust every single person who comes and says, I want to help you. When you're a person who wants to help others, then that kind of wording has been misused. So I'm so glad that you all covered so many aspects of not only their credit worthiness, but also you covered a new subject. I think we'll have an expanded version another time, which is how to protect yourself from spam as well. And it is one of the biggest targets for the spammers and fraudsters are new Canadians, simply because the fear factor is what they use. So thanks again. I cannot thank Pat Dunwoody enough for her support to 369 Connect and the work we are doing. Computech College is part of the 369 Global Group. We have over 1,000 graduates who qualify, in healthcare, IT, and finance sector. And this is a part of those students, part of the administration staff are all attending because they truly value what the panelists have to say here. So we will continue that education. We'll continue engaging with Canadians in general. I mean, I know we are presenting it as new Canadians, but a lot of the subject matters affect all Canadians. I mean, here I am. I learned a lot myself today. So thank you so much for this presentation. And we continue to engage with you. We will keep you posted on our upcoming webinars. I posted the website for the attendees. Please feel free to share. It is a free series of webinars that will go right through to November. And we encourage you to share the Newcomer Financial Summit.ca website to everyone. I also wanted to thank the Canadian ETF Association for being our presenting sponsor and partner in this initiative. Any information on some of the most secure financial investments, such as ETFs, can be obtained from CEDFA and CEDFA.ca. Pat can also guide you. There's a whole slew of members who are all very credible financial services companies that can assist you as well. I've been asked by Kumaran for everyone to smile as he wants to take a screenshot. So there it is, Kumaran. So thanks so much, folks. I look forward to meeting you all again. Over to you, Pat.
I think Danisha said everything. I just want to heartily thank Elizabeth and Elena. I think that was an amazing session. I'm sure there were other things that could have been said, but I can't think of any. And the questions that came from the audience were about half of what we had written down. So one, it gave me comfort that we were on the right track, but also we were at least providing the information that was needed and wanted. So thank you, everybody, for attending. And again, thank you, Elizabeth and Elena. This was fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.